This is my presentation on Teaching with Brave Irene by William Steig. First, I would introduce some vocabulary words to the children. I'd say there are some words in the story that you may not understand. Let's fill out a Freyer model to help us learn what the words mean. So I'll give this to the students. The first word is trudge. I would write it on the board. You write the word trudge at the top on your paper. And I would ask them to stand up and act out the definition, and we would write it on the paper. To move with difficulty and heavy feet. We would talk about it. It's a movement that is tired and slow. And the definition example, my boots were heavy when I trudged through the thick mud. And so students would be allowed to walk around their desks in a trudging fashion. And we would do the same thing for the word wrenched. We would talk about that being a forceful and angry type of movement, which means to pull something away with force. And the example, the cranky toddler wrenched the doll from her twin sister's hand. And the opposite of that is to gently and patiently receive something from someone. And we would possibly practice acting that out as well. The other words would be furrow, helter-skelter, and resented. Next, I would give the children an anticipation guide, and we would talk about how you use the anticipation guide and what that word means, how it means that you think ahead of time about what will happen and how it gets our brains ready for the text. And I would say, look at the front cover. And I would ask them the question from the anticipation guide, which is, look at the front cover. It is easy for the girl to walk with the package. And I would model thinking aloud for them. I'd say, the snow is falling and the wind is blowing her scarf back as she leans into the wind. I don't think it looks easy to walk with the package in all that snow and wind. So I disagree with the statement. And after thinking it through, I'm going to put a check in the disagree column. So then they could do that. Then I'd say, let's look at the next question. The girl in the story does not want to deliver the package. And so I would ask them to think about the statement and look at the cover. And then I would invite them to turn to their table partner and talk about why they disagree or agree and put the check mark in the correct box. And after that time was over, we would talk about it together and then answer the remaining questions on the anticipation guide. And now for a quick review of the story before I read it. Mrs. Bobbins is the sick mother who's made a beautiful dress for a duchess, and she is too ill to deliver it. And Irene is her daughter, who is brave and determined to deliver the beautiful dress in the wintry weather. And she wants to get it to the duchess, who's the wife of a duke. We would talk about all these words. And now I'll just read the parts of the story that relate to my questions. Poor Mama, said Irene. I can get it there. No, Cupcake, I can't let you, said Miss Bobbin. Such a huge package, and it's such a long way to the palace. Besides, it's starting to snow. But I love snow, Irene insisted. She coaxed her mother into bed, covered her with 2 quilts, and added a blanket for her feet. Then she fixed some tea with lemon and honey and put more wood in the stove. With great care, Irene took the splendid gown down from the dummy and packed it in a big box with plenty of tissue paper. Dress warmly, Pudding, her mother called in a weak voice. And don't forget to button up. It's cold out there and windy. Irene put on her fleece-lined boots, her red hat and muffler, her heavy coat and her mittens. She kissed her mother's hot forehead 6 times. Then once again made sure she was tucked in snugly. and slipped out with the big box, shutting the door firmly behind her. And I would ask the students, how would you describe Irene's character? Is she uncaring or loving? And the students would say she is loving. And then I'd ask them, what kind of things does Irene do for her mother that show she is a loving person? And the students would talk about all the things that she did for her mama. And the next part, by the middle of the pasture, the flakes were falling thicker. Now the wind drove Irene along so rudely she had to hop, skip, and go helter-skeltering over the knobby ground. Cold wind sifted into her boots and chilled her feet. She pushed out her lip and hurried on. This was an important errand. When she reached Apple Road, the wind decided to put on a show. It ripped branches from trees and flung them about, swept up and scattered the fallen snow, got in front of Irene to keep her from moving forward. Irene turned around and pressed on backwards. And I'd ask the children, how did the wind put on a show? And they would say that the wind ripped and threw branches and sprayed snow in Irene's face. She pounced and took hold, but the ill-tempered wind ripped the box open. The ball gown flounced out and went waltzing through the powdered air with tissue paper attendants. Irene clung to the empty box and watched the beautiful gown disappear. How could anything so terribly wrong be allowed to happen? Tears froze on her lashes. Her dear mother's hard work, all those days of measuring, cutting, pinning, and stitching, for this, and the poor Duchess. Irene decided she would have to trudge on with just the box and explain everything in person. And I'd ask the children, what would you do if you were delivering a handmade gift to someone and you lost it? And so in the end, I'll just let you know that Irene and Mrs. Bobbins are reunited, grateful, and well. And that's the example of my activities. Thank you.